Hello and welcome back to the Express Deployment Utility presentation. My name is Thomas Reisinger and I want to guide you through the Express Deployment Utility with a live demonstration here in my environment. And the Express Deployment Utility, also called EDU, will help you to deploy faster and hiding the complexity of the infrastructure products of Polycom, and brings up you an infrastructure environment, for example for POC, quite fast without the hurdles of configuring all the products individually. So here in this session I'm connected to a Microsoft Windows server, terminal server. And let me introduce you quickly into the environment, what we have here and what you see. So the tool is already running, but how do you get to the tool? This is maybe the first question. I covered part of it already in the first part of this presentation. So I'm logged in here in Flexera. How do you get to Flexera? You need to place an order with Polycom for a Clarity license. It can be also a trial license, which is time limited, or you order a regular Clarity license, and after that you get access, you get receive credentials from Flexera, which is our licensing portal, and this is also the place where the software is hosted. I'm logged in already, and please don't get confused. It has nothing to do with the regular support.polycom.com site. It is an external third party where we host this software. So you cannot use your Polycom credentials to log in there. You have to place an Clarity license order first. Okay, after you are connected or logged in with your credentials you received and you signed up, changed your password and all this stuff, you see here now this is the VMware Express Deployment Utility. I will cover in this session today just the VMware part with the EDU, and I will use the vSphere deployment method, not the ASXi direct mode. So let's see what we have behind this hyperlink. So first of all you have to agree the export agreement, and then you see on this page all the individual files. So a minimum you need to deploy a DMA and resource manager for with the EDU, but you DMA resource manager and also an RMX if you don't have a physical RMX. A physical RMX's existing ones can be integrated with EDU, but typically a minimum deployment is a DMA, resource manager, and an RMX. And here you see all this, the software files, download files, so PDFs, the release notes. The admin guides are still on the support polycom.com webpage, but here are the OVE files, and most importantly the Express Deployment Utility itself. So this is the Excel file and here's the PDF. Okay, so this demonstrates how you get to the software. Okay, let me see here my directory. This is my directory local on the server, on this terminal server, and I've run this before. And what you need, one of the prerequisites, which is stated in the Express Deployment Utility when you start it, in the help, in the online help, it will extract all the EVE files into OVF files and the VMDK files. So it will do some extracting at the first time. For this reason, you need the WinRAR utility, which is stated in the prerequisites. Okay, so here are my files, and I started already the Express Deployment Utility, this exe file, and I have also the DMA, MCU, and resource manager files here in the same directory. Okay, what else is required? Another requirement is the vSphere client, because I'm using the vApp deployment mode, and here you see I have two ASXi machines running, 75 and 76, and there's some other stuff already deployed, but we should have some space here left. Yeah, for our demonstration this should be sufficient. Yeah, so let's get started. So this is the tool after you started, and here you have the license agreement you have to accept. You can read it here. And also I performed all the indicated prerequisite steps. So you can read them here and open them. You see here what you need: IP addresses, DNS records, and so on and so on. Okay, let's continue. And the second page allows you to load a previously run session with the Express deployment utility, so you don't have to type in all the upcoming parameters. I will do that because I used it before. So VApp Thomas Reisinger, this is my previous session, and as you have seen, it's an OVF file. So it's already in a VMware VApp format, which is XML in the backend, which contains all the details: virtual machine size, how many CPUs, memory, hard disk layout, and so on and so on. And also the Polycom specific parameters for the configuration, like VMR numbers and so on. So I preloaded this file. You will ask yourself, how do I get to this file? At the last page of this wizard, you can save the file and all the data you typed in, and this is exactly where you get the information, the data, when you restart or rerun the tool. So if you don't have this kind of file from a previous session, it will start from scratch. All fields need to be filled out. So the next one is here, in which mode I want to use the tool. So with the VMware Data Center VApp mode, ESXi Direct or Hyper-V Direct. I only cover the VApp mode today. So select this one and click on Next. On the next page, on page number 3, you get some kind of a layout, what kind of infrastructure you want to deploy. So this is an example for minimum deployment. So here I have 5 concurrent cores. Then the conference call ratio, the speed of the hardware, how many maximum virtual cores per virtual machine does my server support, and with all these parameters, the tool will adopt the layout of the virtual machines. So for example, if I add here now, let's say 150 concurrent cores, then the tool is adding additional RMX resources. So the number of virtual machines increased from 3 to 5. You can see here the VMware details, and it simply added 2 additional RMXs with the right sizing, the number of cores, memory, and the disk space. Okay, so I will reduce this back to 5, so to keep it small and tidy. Yeah, you can also deploy Web Suite or Content Connect server, and also the Media Suite if you want to. But then you have to provide, of course, more CPU resources on the ESXi side, but it's a good starting point. But for now, in this example, I go just with the resource manager. For licensing, it's mandatory. The DMA is mandatory for enforcing the clarity license, and an RMX, because I don't have a physical RMX configured or up and running. Okay, let's continue with next. Then the tool will ask you about some basic information it will use to configure all the virtual machines, like the DNS server, default gateway, subnet mask, which NTP server, secondary NTP server, which domain, and so on and so on. And the most important one is here the first IP address for real presence clarity servers. So in my case, I'm deploying 3 virtual machines. That means I need at least 3 IP addresses. And this is exactly that IP address block the tool is using for the configuration of the virtual machines. So the resource manager will get 110, DMA 111, and the RMX 112. Okay, if I have additional RMXs, it will continue counting or using IP addresses depending on how many virtual machines I add. So I go here with next. I can change here the default password. By default, is when you hover with the mouse over this field, you see Polycom 123. So this will be the new admin password. I can change that if you want. Here you can do the configuration for single sign-on resource manager. I keep it unchecked because here, if you do this for the single sign-on, you need all the prerequisites, which means you need a computer account on Active Directory. So then a few more questions around the DMA configuration, which one should be the default virtual meeting room, then how many how many virtual meeting rooms, start range, end range, the virtual entry queue will be configured, what should be the dial prefix for the DMA, and what's the maximum bitrate for a call. Those are all parameters normally you find somewhere around in the DMA. And here is the place where you specify them. You can do also LDAP integration for DMA for the VMR creation out of the of a Windows environment. I uncheck this one. It also requires a domain account, which is stated in the prerequisites, and the prerequisites don't change compared with a manual deployment. And the tool is not logging in into AD and creating an end user for you. So you have to do this up front. Okay, so next. On this page, we're getting closer to the end. You can add additional MCUs. So for example, if I have an RMX 1800 already somewhere deployed, I can specify the IP address, username and password. The tool will add it and register it to the DMA. Then it's part of my deployment. I skip that one because I only have my virtual one, which will be generated and deployed by the EDU. So on this page, you see a review what's going to be deployed, and here you see the IP addresses again, 110, 111, 112. And here is also the place where you can change the host name if you want to. I keep it on default. And this is the final page where you can save the OV file. So this is OVF file. So I simply use the same name. Now the tool is overwriting my previous setting and session, but there was no change at all. So this is the file, this, the express utility generated, and here I can open it. When you have a look in this file, yeah, please don't modify it, it's just for demonstration here. You see it's an XML ASCII file, and you see all the definitions of the virtual machines and yeah, all the details which is required for VMware to deploy this file. So I stored this file. I consent to automatically send my usage data to improve the product quality. And here the final button is the verify configuration. And here the tool is simply verifying or tries to verify the settings you specified before. So first of all, it will query, is there DNS available? Does NTP work? Is the second NTP reachable? And the final check, are the free IP addresses, the IP address range I specified, are the IP addresses available, or is another machine using it already? And it's important to understand that the tool, those checks are run from the machine I started the tool from. In my case, it's a terminal server session, so it is a good advice or a good idea to run the tool in the same IP subnet as you're going to deploy the virtual environment. Okay, so let's wait for the final ping check. If this is also okay. So, okay, everything is green, ready to go. So the final step is the next button. Now what happens? So the tool is now waiting, and because I'm in VApp mode, nothing happens right now. So what I need to do is I need to take this stored OVF template or specification file for the VApp, and the VApp is the combination of all the virtual machines we are going to deploy. So the RMX, the DMA, and the resource manager. So I need to open now my vCenter, and I have to deploy. This is a VMware software, it has nothing to do with Polycom. So I simply deploy now this OVF template my tool just generated. I point it to the directory, should be here somewhere local, C setup Polycom EDU 3.0, and this is my VApp Thomas Reisinger file as saved before. So I open that one, and here again typical VMware wizard style. It shows me what's the content of this file. Yeah, next, this is what I want to do. Here I can specify a name for the VApp. I call it EDU. Then, yeah, I want to deploy it on 76 on this ESXi machine. And the next question is, what kind of deployment you want to use on the hard disks, thick provisioning or thin provisioning. We go with thin provisioning. It's supported by Polycom, no problem. Our applications are not so hard disk intensive, so we are more interested on CPU power, especially on the RMX, and thin provisioning is fine. So next, here I have to specify the network interface. in my environment here in the lab it's lab A. And on this page, I see all the parameters, the Polycom specific parameters I specified in the express deployment utility. So this is the last chance I can modify those values. Yeah, but in my case, I simply keep it. And final summary. And there's a checkbox here, power on after deployment. So that means after the files are uploaded, the vCenter application turns them on, and this is exactly the point where the express deployment utility continues. So what happens right now? Again, this is a VMware application. So my vSphere client is now copying all these VMDK files I have on my local hard disks, and it's copying it to this ESXi machine. And I see it already here in the background. So 76, this is my ESXi machine, and I see the virtual machines coming up here already. So let me move that a little bit to the right. So Resource Manager, DMA, and the MCU. And those are the versions which come with the download area. So from Flexera, here, for example, you see MCU 864, and this is the version you have to stick with. So you cannot change the OVA file, so you download it and you simply swap it to the latest, for example, 8.7 RMX file. This will not work. The express deployment utility is looking exactly for this file, which is available on Flexera. So you need to deploy it first. And afterwards, after everything is up and running, of course, then the EDU utility is completed, and after that process, you can update all these individual machines. For example, you can upgrade the DMA, the MCU, and Resource Manager. But the tool gives you and provides you with a state now, with a clear specified state, how the infrastructure looks like. In our case, these 3 machines. So this will take now around 3 minutes more. And a good advice, a good practice is also to run in my case, this terminal server, run it really close to the ESXi machines. Because keep in mind, all the data, in this case it's I think around 4 GB, will be transferred. So if I run this vSphere client from a laptop, from my home office via VPN client to this ESXi machine at the customer or my company lab environment, this will take a while. So it's much better to deploy, for example, a local Windows machine. In my case, it's a terminal server. It's running here. This is my terminal server, and you open a browser, you download all the software to this local machine, and from here I do the deployment in the local network. I simply remote control the environment via VPN, which is much faster. Otherwise, the file transfer, I don't know how long it would take, but several hours, and the risk of disconnects. So it's much better to do it on the same machine. And later on, this scenario could also work perfectly for a customer. So the customer provides you with 1 or 2 ESXi machines for a small proof of concept, for Real Connect, for example. Then you connect with the vSphere, with a VPN or RDP session or TeamViewer session somehow to this infrastructure. You deploy a Windows machine, or the TeamViewer is running already on one of these Windows machines, virtual Windows machines, and you remote control it from there and deploy all the files. So let's have a quick look what happens here in the background with the utility. So the express deployment utility is now, it's still waiting. So and the status for license server, it's down. Why? Because it's still deploying. So in the background, I'm still deploying the images, and the machines are not even turned on because the copy process is still happening. So after that is completed, I checked. I checked the checkbox for the turn on virtual machines after deployment. So the vCenter will turn them on immediately after the copy process is completed. So which happens right now. So, and you see here, all the 3 machines are turned on at the same time. So it's a good idea to have a bit of a powerful machine. and the memory and CPU utilization should go up here on the ASICS machine quite soon. So they are now green. That means they are turned on. I can even, so it's not a must, but I can even watch the machines booting up. So for example, this is the resource manager booting up CentOS 6.6. Yeah, and the Express deployment utility is still waiting here in the background until it can reach the virtual machines. Okay, so I will stop here now this recording because this will take another 10 minutes, and I will be back as soon the resource manager is up and running and we are ready for licensing for the next manual step. I will be back. Stay tuned.